I would love to see us both candidates, and Kamala Harris hasn't done this yet. I'd love to challenge her to do it because I think it's good for the voters of the country. She hasn't sat down for one media interview of a hard-pressing one-on-one variety yet. And she's actually the leading candidate now in many of the polls for U.S. president. So I just think we deserve a country where the people are willing to show up. She should show up here. She should show up on CNBC, where I was this morning, and actually engage in hard questions about what her beliefs are. You saw JD, say what you will, on
Watched
3
them all
shows
day yesterday.
pressed on exactly that very issue. And I think that's good for the American people to then be able to make their own judgment. It's not your judgment or the journalist's judgment, but it's what people at home are able to see to assess. Do I actually believe somebody who believes they changed their mind over the course of time? Kamala Harris might have changed her mind, and I think it's okay. Flip-flopping is one thing, changing your mind thoughtfully is another. But you deserve to be questioned on it, and it's up to the voters to decide whether or not they believe you. Right now, we're not getting that chance. And I do think it is, you're saying, well, hopefully we're going to see that. I'm not sure yet that we will. It's been about a solid month that Kamala Harris has been the presumptive nominee. We got the convention coming up, this coming week, next week. I think it is vital for the health of this country that the same treatment that the media gave Joe Biden in that last few weeks after his debate, they didn't do that for 3 years.
Yeah.
For 3 years, we missed that. The fact that it took that early debate and Donald Trump demolishing him in that debate for the country to suddenly wake up and say that Joe Biden is not a functioning U.S. president is actually a damning indictment of the entire media and its relationship to the political class. So we can't make that same mistake with Kamala Harris. I think the media needs to demand that she at least face the same kind of questioning that, frankly, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are getting right now. And then the public, it's up to them to decide. That's a functioning democracy.
But because you're not implying, by her not doing the interviews and based off of the way that Biden was treated in those last couple of weeks, you're not implying that you don't think she's competent to be the president of the United States, right?
I'm saying the media is covering for her right now the same way they covered for Biden for 3 years.
You think they're covering, or you think that she's just using her
They're not playing
strategy?
hard. They're not paying this. She's using a strategy. Okay, I think she's using some smart.
Which politicians do.
That's fine, but I think it's the media's job now to cut through that strategy and say this person very well could be the president of the United States. Has at least a 50% chance right now, according to most forecasts, of being the next president. She deserves to be questioned, not with kid gloves, but questioned with the gloves off, on what exactly her policy vision is for the country. Until that happens, I think the voters are hiding in the dark, and that's what allows the machine to work. Because we know she's questioned a lot on that behind closed doors. Who's funding the campaigns of both parties? Behind closed doors, a lot of donors ask a lot of questions. That's how you raise hundreds of millions of dollars in just 1 month. The voting public deserves that same level of transparency. Say what you will about, you could criticize either side. I like that Donald Trump showed up at the Libertarian Party convention, right? That's a third party. They had a convention. I actually spoke there. He spoke there as well the next night. I like that he spoke to the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago. I'd love for Kamala Harris to show up at the National Association of Black Journalists.
Well, she wanted to, but they wouldn't let her do the virtual thing. She does have a day job.
But the day
She's still
job,
vice president.
No, but the day job is running. Come on. At this point, she is going full time, reading off a teleprompter at the rallies, the same thing 4 times a day. She should show up for that interview. If Donald Trump sits down with the National Association of Black Journalists, I'm sorry, a scheduling excuse is not a valid reason for the
don't we know
competitor to also show up.
But if Kamala, not to cut you off, I'm sorry. If Kamala sits down with NABJ, we know where she's going conversation-wise, right? I think it's honestly,
I don't necessarily true. I don't think that's true. I think the person who did that interview for Donald Trump, if they had taken the same approach with respect to Kamala Harris, I think that'd actually be pretty good conversation for the country.
I don't know if she would. I want to see her on. I want to see the vice president on Fox News.
Yeah, I think she should go across the room.
Even better. Even better, right? So one of the things I liked, Donald Trump went to the Bronx. People could say it wasn't the real Bronx or whatever, but he showed up in the Bronx. He showed up in South Bronx. Showed up in inner cities in the country. Even in my own campaign, I went to the south side of Chicago. Went to a room full of 95% black, 95% Democrat. It's not a traditional Republican primary location. I went to Kensington in the inner city of Philadelphia. Speaking as a former candidate myself, I could tell you those trips had an impact on me, right? It had an impact on my view of a national unity that I believe is possible in this country that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't showed up there. I'd love to see Kamala Harris go into rural Mississippi, go into Alabama, showing up at a Fox News moderated town hall.
Well, she does do that. Now, we can't act like she doesn't do that. Even the past week, she hit all of the battleground states, and she's actually hitting the street, which I think in a lot of ways is more effective right now than sitting
with
down and doing an
hostile questioning,
interview.
though, is not. I want to see her answer questions from people who disagree with her. That's what the country's founded on. All right, so face face off with the people you disagree with.
So like town halls, you mean?
Yeah, town halls.
I'm not mad at that.
And or hostile journalists. And here's why. When you stop talking
Not
to people
hostile, hard hitting.
hard hitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to say, because you see black women in a hostile situation. Did you see that when you went to them places? She gonna know how to handle it. She gonna be good.
I hope so. We'll see. I hope so for the country. But here's what I will say is, when you stop talking to people who disagree with you, it becomes a lot easier to demonize them.
I agree.
And that's what happens in the country. So say what you will about, I know we probably have different views on who we're voting for this cycle, but I will say more so than most Republicans, and in this cycle more so than the Democratic opponent, Donald Trump has talked to people who disagree with him, faced off more than Kamala Harris has, and I think she has a couple months left to see if she has it in her to level up. If you want to sit across the table from Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin, then you better be willing to sit across the table from your fellow Americans who disagree with you and face that questioning too. And that's my challenge to her. If she does that, I'm not going to say I'm going to vote for her, but because I disagree with her on the policies, but I will respect her as a candidate in a way that I don't until she actually does.